Hello. Early Betamax video recorders in NTSC countries could run at a particular tape speed called Beta I, which ran the tape very fast and was very high quality, so it was often used for semi-professional work. And this is a machine of that format. It's the SLO-320. I was working on this a week or so ago. I had a problem, it had broken down, it was behaving very strangely, a micro switch needed replacing and I did that, but it just didn't work afterwards. I also found a metal pin floating around inside. I don't know if that came from the machine or was external. I also don't know if it may have done some damage. Let's have a quick look at the machine. So here is our machine, and there's the metal pin, and when it's powered up it's just doing crazy things. Now, I couldn't go any further without a service manual. I still don't have the service manual for this machine, but I have been kindly sent a service manual for SLO-320. There's a couple of extra features on this model, but it's clearly very, very similar. So this one has linear stereo sound, so it has 2 VU meters, where ours only has 1. And this has an extra control for changing speed, so you can do variable slow motion. This doesn't do that. And there's some cosmetic changes around the switches. But I think for our purposes, that service manual should be close enough for us to find out, for example, if this pin is important, to also find out if my suspicion that the dew sensor is being operated intermittently. We can look into that using this service manual. So let's have a look at the manual. So here's the service manual. This is quite interesting. It shows the tape layout, the tape design, because in the early days, it was almost a case of every video recorder was its own format. So it's quite interesting there. You go through the trouble of showing you that the audio channels go right and left, and then you have video and control. And that, as far as I'm aware, that is exactly the same layout as was used on early Betacam professional video recorders as well. Just the video layout was very different. So here's the layout of the slightly later, I believe, SLO-320, which has got some slightly different controls here, stereo sound and a speed control there. There's also some information about a remote control editing system that can work with this and some other video recorders, but not our SLO-320, it would seem. We have some diagrams of the mechanism. This is the top, and so we can have a look for that pin thing. This diagram shows the top of the mechanism, so that will help us hopefully to see where we can get this thing came from, if it came from this video recorder at all, whether it came from the top or the bottom of the deck. This tells you how to bypass the tape slack sensor if you're running the deck with no tape in it. It suggests here for operating the machine with no cassette in it that you can use a crocodile clip to click the actuating lever permanently into operation. We have all the wiring diagrams and boards. We'll possibly get into that later, trying to work out what our problems are. But I think we have some more mechanical information later. I hope so. Yes. Armed with this, I might be able to work out where that missing pin comes from, if it comes from this machine at all. So the pin in question is flat at the bottom and slightly conical at the top, with then a flat top at the very top of it. Is it one of these? Well, I don't see it as being anywhere on that diagram, so if it comes from this machine, I suspect it comes from further down. This is the top side of the deck. A bit more from the top side of the deck here. And again, no, I'm not seeing it anywhere in that diagram. Let's keep going. Right, this I think is looking on the underside of the deck. Not seeing it there. Are we looking at the top or the bottom here? I think we're looking down at the top. This is mostly associated with the loading mechanism, which is working anyway. Drum and guides. This I believe is all working anyway, but let's look for that part in case it is here somewhere. No, let's keep going. This is where the solenoids are. underneath. These are sliding actuators. What do they call them? Yes, sliders is what they call them. I can't quite see how this pin here fits, but it's not impossible that that could be it. So I want to make sure that this is pivoting properly, this solenoid here. Cassette carriage. This is working except the eject. And a sort of overall shot of the boards and things, which isn't going to be relevant to this. Okay, so we have one place to look. That's solenoid. Tried to move this around so I have a better shot by disconnecting this cable from the larger of the PCBs. I can get to see most of the deck now. So looking at the service manual here, we can see the set of solenoids, these solenoids, and then all the things that it connects to those, but all those are on the top side. So I'm going to have to flip the machine around and try to find the top of these at the other side. It's going to be hard. I don't know if you can see that, but here's the solenoid, there's the actuator, and that's working fine. So that's not where that pin came from. There also are a set of pins in here at the top of the solenoids, and they're all present by the looks of it. So I'm beginning to think that pin is not from this machine, but has been dropped in from somewhere. But I'll keep an open mind on it. Now the other suspicion I had was the machine's behaving as though it is in due sensor operation. Let me power up the machine and show you what it does. Right, so power it up 120 volts, switch it on, straight away the head starts spinning. If I tell it that it's a tape in there, that's correct, it laces up. That's one thing it does properly. But then if I select play or anything else, it just sits there not doing anything. And this light, I think this is a ready light and that's not ready. If I select eject, it's ignoring that command now. So that's all wrong. Let's see if the service manual can help. And if I take this cassette in sensor off, it starts spinning up again. But that's an impossible situation as far as the video recorder is concerned. There should never be a case where it's laced up, but there's no tape in there. The manual says about due sensor, moisture condensed inside the machine is detected and automatically evaporated by means of an internal fan and heater. Right, so running that head with the fan on the top, and there's a heater in there, I think. So I do think it's detecting a non-existent due sensor situation. It would appear I have a problem. The service manual shows the transistors around a condensation sensor to be Q37, 38, 39, and here is the condensation section or due on this board, and the transistors are Q52, 53, 54. So it means that the service manual for this different model is probably a little bit too different to this machine for us to use it electrically. It would be okay mechanically, but not electrically. So we're going to be slightly on our own here with trying to look at this due sensor problem. This first transistor though, and the due sensor circuit, may have been impacting on this bracket here. It seems to have been pushed out of shape. Now I'm not sure it's far enough to make a difference, but it's not good. Might one of the pins have been touching on it? Maybe. I think I'm going to desolder that transistor and have a look at the state of the pins on it. Right, that's sorted out the soldering on that transistor. That's no longer scrunched up to that bracket. I don't think this has fixed it, but let's just put it together and give it a whirl to make sure that nothing's changed. Okay, power it up again, and if it just runs up the motor, then we know that it's still in due operation, or at least that's my suspicion. Yes, it's still in due operation. Let's look some more at that due circuit. So clearly on the later version it's totally different because it's got an IC in there and ours is all transistor. You know, that due sensor operation, I think that was a bit intermittent for a while. So I'm going to go through the few electrolytic capacitors that are in this circuit and see if they're okay. Well, I've done some work on this, and one thing I've discovered is that the due operation, the due detector, is too different on this SLO-320 to the SLO-323. So I'm finished with that. I cannot fix the due sensor without the proper schematics. I've worked something out though. This top relay here, solenoid, is the eject solenoid, which has not been working, and it should operate this, but it's not. And I believe the reason it's not is because there's something missing. I think that's where this pin comes from. I think there should be a pin between this lever and what's beneath it. Exactly how it connects I don't know, but I'm sure that's not right. Yes, there should be a pin and a spring. Now you know what, I did find a spring rolling around and I wondered what that's to do with. So the spring goes around the pin, so they should be like that, sat underneath this actuator. That could be quite fiddly to reinstall, but I'm certainly going to give it a shot. On one of the other solenoids you can see that spring and pin underneath it. There they are on the other solenoids. And this top one, which you can't quite see because the spool's in the way, is missing its pin and spring. Right, the big mystery is whether the pin goes that way round or that way round, because it has a slightly conical top or bottom. I may have to take the reel table off to get to this part of the mechanism. This reel table. Don't really want to, but I think I'm going to have to. That's the reel table removed. I need to be careful when reinstalling it that I put the back tension band on properly. Let's remove the plastic actuator. Right, that's the actuator. I think logically the slightly conical surface would be on there. I've got some really fantastic tweezers here that are sprung closed. I love these. I lost them for a long time and was very upset about it. Ideal for this sort of job. You have to place a component like this. That's just sliding straight through. If I put that in, it's just going to fall straight out the bottom. So what's supposed to hold that in on the other side? Right, it's become obvious there's more to this. I found this bit of plastic rolling around in the machine as well. And now it is all becoming clearer. It should be assembled like this. That should be mounted in there, and this then pushes on it. And it just seems that that attachment wasn't sufficiently strong and it came apart. So there it is. I've now refitted the spring and its locating mechanism there, and I just need to slide this back on the top. Now hopefully you can just about see that that is fully assembled on that eject mechanism as per all the others. So hopefully now when I press eject in the unlaced position it will eject, we'll see, but it may still be locked out because of this due sensor problem, but at least that's fixed. The way these work, I think, is you have a big solenoid here and a set of levers, and when that solenoid actuates, which of these levers is operated, the play, rewind, fast forward and eject, that will then happen. So I'm hoping if I hold down the eject position when I operate this lever, that will operate the eject. Let me try it. Yes! So eject is fixed. I just need to put the reel table back now. I have to be careful because there's a back tension band that needs to go around the base of the table. Supply spool to you and me, really. Okay, so I carefully moved the back tension band out of the way and the brake out of the way while I refitted the supply spool, or reel table as Sony call it. Now I just need to refit the screw on the top. Now I'll reassemble the bottom. So I know I still have a problem which I believe to be the dew sensor, but at least I've made a little bit of progress today. Let's reassemble it. The eject may or not work depending on what the dew sensor locks out, but at least mechanically it'll work now. So hopefully now from this position of it, I've manually unlaced it. It does not think there's a tape in there because that's out. So I'm hoping if I switch it on, I should be able to operate the eject. I don't know if it'll work, but give it a go. Well, it did, but it's spinning that. Eject seems to be permanently activated. Huh. Little odd. Maybe that's what it does in the dew condition. It ejects a tape and just runs the motor. We just don't know how it operates in this dew sensor condition. But at least eject is now working. Before I completely give up on the problems I'm having with the dew sensor on this machine, dew sensors on modernish video recorders have a chemical composition such that their resistance, strangely, goes up when they detect moisture. And they're around about the 300 ohm area normally, and they go up. This dew sensor here, I don't know if you can quite see it there. Can you see the dew sensor here? Runs along there. It appears to be just metal strips running very close to each other, and any condensation between the metal strips will be detected as a reduction in resistance. And the two terminals are at each end. There's one there, one here. But I can't see where the wires go. I can't see what colour the wires are, and therefore what terminal they appear on the servo board. But what I will do is just look at the resistance I measure between the two terminals, which come out here into those screws. Well, I think they're onto the screws. What resistance do I measure? I'll set you up, see if you can read the resistance for me. Right, I'll try to measure the resistance of those endpoints. This is really tricky. Open circuit. I'm not sure if I'm making contact with them. It's extremely hard. Right, and that's going across the terminal. So yeah, that does seem to be... There's no real dew then. I wonder if I can contact that terminal point here if I poke about the wires at the other end where I think it plugs into. Okay, that one's ground, so it's the other end I want. Aha! I found where that terminal is. So this pin 1 here is the contact for the dew sensor, and the other side of the dew sensor goes to ground. So this one here must feed into an amplifier of some sort. I'll follow the trace up from the pin which is the input from the dew sensor. So it's on this pin 1 and it goes up here. Let's follow it up. And it comes to this point, which goes across to a resistor, and there's also a capacitor there. And then this point here, which is the feed for this signal that's amplified from the dew sensor, seems to be surrounded by some kind of gunge on the circuit board. But is it enough to trigger the dew sensor? Let's clean it up. I can't really work this out without the service manual, but what I'm going to do, I believe it amplifies along in this direction. So the last transistor, what I believe to be the last transistor in the dew circuit, I'm going to take it out in the hope that that will disable the dew sensor operation. Let's give it a shot. Okay, whether that helps at all depends on a host of things, including the operation of this, whether it's sort of shorted or open in order to operate the dew sensor, whether this is part of the dew sensor, whether the fault is somewhere else. There's a whole host of reasons this may not have worked, but I'll give it a shot just to see if maybe it doesn't go into dew mode now. Power it up. Yeah, it's still in dew mode. Oh well, refit the transistor. So I think we've come to the end of what we can do at the moment. This manual for the SLO-320 was close enough to help me debug the mechanical problems, but not close enough for me to sort out the electronic issues. It seems that the electronics are too different in this model. I guess you'd call that slow progress. So I'm going to have to wait for the SLO-320 service manual to arrive. In the meantime, please remember to like, share and especially subscribe, and I'll do a lot more content on audio and video technology in the near future. Bye for now.